Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome. It's 4:45. It's August 2nd. We're here for Committee of the Whole. Councilmember Harekesi has been excused. Everybody else is here, which is fantastic. We have to start out approval of the minutes for Committee of the Whole from July 5th, 2022. Are there any corrections, concerns, or if not, I'll take a motion?
I'll move approval of the minutes for the Committee of the Whole for July 5th, 2022.
I will second that. Awesome. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so those are approved. We'll move on to discussion items. Discussion on a resolution approving the Mid-Valley Active Transportation Plan. We've got Chris and Thomas presenting. If you want to come on up. And thanks for joining us today.
Do a quick introduction. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to present the Mid-Valley Active Transportation Plan. Later this month, we'll be asking you to approve a resolution for regarding this discussion. So the Mid-Valley Active Transportation Plan is a joint discussion. We've got Thomas has a great presentation that's going to go through. This is Thomas McMurtry with Avenue Consultants. He was leading the project with Wasatch Front and the cities of obviously Murray, Cottonwood Heights, Midvale, Holiday, Mill Creek, and Taylorsville. Danny Astle, myself, and Zach Smallwood, we all participated in the sessions, as well as we had a couple of Murray residents and bike community members who participated as well. In short, the plan was initiated to create a backbone network amongst all of our cities, and Thomas will kind of describe some of that. The importance of this project is that it helps us get funding for our own. It also helps us with our outlays. The benefit of what we've got right now with the plan is it mirrors the 2021 Transportation Master Plan that was approved last year by this council. And, you know, one of the things that I'd like to even just kind of go with is there's two projects that, you know, one of which Thomas will talk about, which is 48th and then Vine Street, of course. The intent is to create that corridor so we can connect with our other cities, specifically in the heart of this valley. You know, Vine Street's a great one because it crosses 4 miles throughout Murray City, but also goes into Highland Drive in Holiday. And, you know, this is us kind of agreeing, saying, yes, we share this border. Yes, this is the roads we want to connect with to create this backbone network. One of the ones that, and just to highlight the importance of this plan with our funding in Wasatch Front, we applied for Wasatch Front grants for transportation alternatives projects for the 4800 South. Right now we have a corridor, but a pinch point at the I-15 bridge. And we use this plan to actually help sell it. And we have tentative funding given approval from the Transportation Commission for that project. So just to tout the benefits of this program, it's already seeing benefits for Murray City. And I'll leave the rest for Thomas here. Stand back and answer any questions you have after.
So I do have a presentation. I'll mention at the end that the website that we built for this project is still up. It's midvalleyatp.com. And if you go there, you can get and download the full report, which I have, and hopefully you guys have had a chance to kind of take a look at. And so I just want to go through some of the, give you guys just maybe a little bit of a sense. Can I click on this and go? Yes, I can. Sweet. Chris gave a great introduction. This was an incredibly collaborative process. He mentioned the 6 cities that were involved. Mill Creek was the chair that kind of put together, it said, hey, we're all here in this middle of the valley. Let's all get together and like collaborate on where our route's going to be and make sure our connections are actually making happen. And then they worked specifically with Wasatch Front and UDOT to kind of, you know, put this plan together. So we had a long list of folks that were a part of it. We kicked off right before the pandemic. So we started in like January 2020. And so, you know, it made the summer ended up being a little bit difficult. And so it changed a little bit of our plans on some of our outreach, which I'll talk about briefly. But before the pandemic hit, we got together a couple times. And one of those times was to kind of bring everybody together and come up with a unified vision for the plan. And that's what's on the screen in front of you. And the vision is just working together on a connected active transportation system for all ages and abilities. And again, it was a collaborative process, and everybody wanted to come together. It was a fun way of developing both the vision and then the 4 goals that you guys see on the slide. The goals were kind of how we evaluated project ideas. And so these weren't just kind of lip service where it says complete a connected backbone network or collaborate on a multi-city commitment. We really meant that and wanted to see that in the final projects and the way things got evaluated and ultimately ended up in the plans. I want to just show you a couple of slides on some existing conditions. Murray, you guys are in maybe a better place than a lot of the cities in the valley. This is just a map of the existing active transportation network that existed as of January kind of 2020, and you can see the Jordan River Trail as well as Chris mentioned Vine Street, which is just a really good connection for you, as well as you can see Winchester and I think 5900 South on there as well with identified shared roadway. You guys had probably more miles of bike lanes than other cities. In fact, my next slide I think shows all of the existing infrastructure that was in these 6 cities. And so your residents are really served well, not just with the Jordan River Trail, but some of those other connections. But you can also see there's some disconnects, right? There are connections that need to be made that don't exist today. And it's very difficult to get east-west across the valley just generally, right? If you're on the Jordan River Trail, it's nearly impossible to be able to bike or walk anywhere, across I-15 or across states, or just get to the east side of the valley and vice versa going west. And so that was a lot of what we, leading the study wanted to kind of do and accomplish. There was also a goal in there about safety. So I just wanted to show you guys, this is a map of bicycle and pedestrian crashes in Murray. And we did this for the entire area. You guys had 2 pedestrian fatalities. One of those, though, I believe was on I-15. And it was somebody who exited their vehicle and then as a ped got hit and killed. So there's not really much we can do for that. And so, but there are clusters of, pedestrians and bicyclists that have been hit at a couple different areas by vehicles, and certainly was something that we took into consideration when developing the final list. You'll notice State Street stands out as being an area that has a lot of crashes. It is everyone kind of recognized, and even UDOT will tell you that State Street is not necessarily where we want, bikes and peds to be, that ultimately that's, a car thoroughfare. And so we wanted to make sure that we had enough connections and, corridors that gave them alternatives that said, oh, this is a safe place for bikes and peds, and it's probably not State Street. This is Strava data. If you know what that is, it is data of users, so actual user data of how many people are biking and walking out there. It's an opt-in app, so it's an app on your phone, and you just hit record, and then you can go do your activity. You can jog or ride your bike or whatever, and it just kind of shows you where these people are recreating. So it's recreation only. It doesn't account for commuters or people doing casual rides. But it does, if you look at the map on the right, that's the pedestrian Strava use, and you can see there's quite a bit in Murray. It's mostly on the Jordan River Trail, but having those connections to that facility is incredibly critical. And looking at the existing use is something that leads us to those conclusions. And then I'll show you an image in a minute, but one of the things that we did when we started to say, okay, well, here's our vision, and this is kind of where we are, this is our starting place. We wanted to say, okay, well, what types of things are we looking to do or to improve? And this, again, all of these, every image you see is directly from the final report. And this was something that we went on a bike tour with Chris and Danny and others to kind of look at different facilities that we might want to consider. And that's what you see up here. Things like, shoulder bikeways, protected bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, sidewalks, shared use paths, side paths, and even some soft service stuff. So, this was kind of like, these are the tools in our toolbox to make the connections that we need to kind of through the valley and specifically in Murray. We got together in March of 2020 to do a big collaborative brainstorm with people. And I have video of this meeting. It was a lot of fun. And, the outcomes of that are kind of like where we started with our projects. But everybody got together and we looked at maps on tables and head markers and kind of thought of just a universe of options is what we called it, where we just kind of brainstorm anything that we could possibly do or add. And the map, the one on the left, is the outcome of that meeting. We invited 60 key collaborators, we called them. We invited the mayor, we had Danny there, and Chris, we invited Trey. I can't remember, we had several people from Murray that came and participated. And then we also wanted to make it available to the public. but this was in March of 2020, right as the pandemic was hitting. And so what we did was we put the brainstorm online, and we built the map that people could draw lines and place dots and like give us all of their ideas, but just and at the comfort of their home, right, or in their own computer. And that's the map on the right. We ended up getting about 700 new ideas from the public that they drew lines and gave us pins and said, oh, what about this? What about this? And so we were able to, take and, have that brainstorm available to the public, through that form.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Could you go back?
Could I go back? That's a real question.
Perfect. Now, what is this handwritten? What does that say? I can't read it on.
I can't read it either. The map on the left is the map from our brainstorm.
Right.
And so there was a lot of notes that are written on the map in Sharpie, and there's several post-it notes, and there's a million little lines drawn kind of all over. It's all of the ideas that we kind of came up with and marked up the map.
Okay.
And so we digitized every single one. We read every single one of those comments and drew the lines that people, we took the Sharpie markers and digitized them into our GIS system. But the truth is, I don't know. I haven't looked at that map in a long time, and I can't read those either.
Do you have them listed anywhere? Or?
Yeah, well, so I'll show you the final outcomes of all of these ideas. It's all of the good ideas that we evaluated and performed well, and ended up being then reviewed and vetted and made the final project list are in the final map and in the final report. There's a handful of ideas that were either duplicates or they didn't make a lot of sense ultimately, or they were a little harebrained. I'll tell you one, for example, was at the junction of Van Winkle and 9th East, there was an idea to do an elevated bicycle intersection. Do you remember this? They have them in Amsterdam. There's it's a giant structure where all the bikes go up and they're all above the cars, and you can go in this big circle and access wherever you want. That was an idea that was generated here in this brainstorm. It is not in the final plan, right? Like that just didn't make sense and wouldn't be very feasible. So if you want to get a detailed copy of this, I've got a very high resolution photo that you can look at. But it was all of these ideas were evaluated, and all of the good ones are in the final plan.
It just makes me really curious when I see something that's handwritten and I can't read it on anything that I've been given. So, that's just kind of one of my...
Well, and I like showing our dirty laundry a little bit. It's not dirty laundry, just how the sausage is made, right? Like these is like the nitty gritty of us getting together and collaborating and coming up with ideas instead of just jumping. So I like kind of showing these things, even if, like this was such early in the process, it's not worth evaluating. The final project list is, but if you'd like this specific image, I can get it for you.
If I remember, some of the comments that were put on them was, it was just kind of, hey, why can't we have a trail? It was more an explanation of the line someone drew on the map more than it was a specific note. Like,
okay. Well,
I'm put one down. Why don't we have one along Jordan River or something? Something like that.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the Murray, comments and stuff. But
the results of the survey.
If they're really not pertinent, then okay.
Well, and I'll show you at the end. There is an appendix. It's also on the website. It's over 100 pages, but every single written comment that we got from Murray residents and all of the votes from the survey are in the appendix, and you're welcome to read it. So they're all documented if you kind of want to get in there.
Actually, I would really like to read that.
It's on the website. You can visit it anytime you want, and you can click on and download the full appendix and take a look at it.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you.
I did just in terms of like the process, once we kind of had all these ideas generated, we went through an evaluation of all the ideas in terms of how well they met the vision and goals. And I don't need to go too much into the details, but it was just an exhaustive exercise of just saying like, connecting to key destinations was important. And so we came up with a network of every kind of key destination in the area. And, were these projects allowing for those type of connections? Were they improving safety on the safe network? Those type of things that just kind of went into developing the final set of goals or the final projects. I mentioned we did the bike tour. This is a photo of it here on the right. So you can see Chris, he's right up front with the big orange shirts. I'm back there too. Danny's in this photo as well. But besides like going out and on the tour and seeing all the facilities, we also had a lot of collaborative meetings that we held on Zoom kind of during the pandemic with this whole large group. You can see both Zach and Danny across the top of that Zoom screen. And so, Murray was just, incredibly participatory in all of the things that we did throughout the entire process. We also did our best to reach out to the public during the pandemic. We built the website. We allowed for like open comments wherever, besides just the survey that we did, which generated the 750 specific location ideas. We also had several questions along with it, and we got lots of survey responses, 5,000 visits to the website, and we reached out to over 32,000 total people through social media. That was just basically social media posts and telling them about things. Not all of those people will interact with us, but at least they could like see and have the opportunity to do so. So that's a little bit about the community involvement. I did just want to share this one survey result. So we asked a bunch of survey questions, and a lot of the content is in the final report, but I just wanted to show this one to you because it was meaningful to me. We asked Murray residents, if your ideal walking and biking facilities were available, how often would you use them? And your residents, 46% said that they would walk every day. And another 38% said they walk a couple times a week, right? So that's over 84% of your residents really want to get out there and walk and have those facilities. And you can see the bike is just below it. It's 27 and 40%. So in terms of, weekly use of those type of facilities, which again, just shows, the desire of folks to have active transportation facilities available to them. And your city was higher than those numbers on the left, the 39 and 38. That's like the rest of the valley, like all cities combined. So Murray, you guys have almost a more active population. Your people want to be out doing more things. So the results of all of this are this final set of projects. There's 240 projects across all 6 cities, and this is kind of how they look, and in terms of how they all kind of connect together. And then the next slide is the ones here in Murray. So here's the final list of active transportation projects in Murray. I will say that some of these are really easy to do, and you guys are already working on them. A lot of them are going to be more complicated, that there are some trade-offs and some footprint issues, or they're just going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of like work through some of the specifics of them. Each of these projects, we wanted to provide a little bit more detail on the ones that we could. And so we given some facility type images, and the appendix has a full design guide as well. So if there's a question about, okay, well, what do we mean with like, a shared roadway or a buffered bike lane? We've got these kind of simple images, but there's more in the design guide in the appendix. But to help you guys take one step further, and Chris already talked about this, is we wanted every city to get just a little bit of design guidance from our designers to actually take a look at, okay, well, how could we get one of these projects done and built? And in the case of Murray, we looked specifically at 4800 South. It was a collaboration with Taylorsville. So we took it all the way from Redwood Road, all the way out to Van Winkle and 9th. And we even looked at what that intersection would look like. And so that's available on the website. I'll show you guys. If you haven't looked at it, you can go.
Oh, just take the whole thing.
You just pick it up. Thank you.
Sure. So again, if you go to the website, there's a tab at the top that is designs, and you can go and take a look at all of the designs. You can click on these and download a KMZ. You can look at them in Google Earth and zoom in, but you can also look at them directly in the website. And I just wanted to point out, this one on 48th, and if you can take a look at the whole thing, it goes all the way from Taylorsville and all the way across. It connects into the Jordan River. Chris just talked about, the way it would cross, underneath I-15. And there's, we stayed within the footprint of the project, and these are buffered bike lanes. And every once in a while, there's some edits to the design to make it work with what is there existing. So we want buffered bike lanes so the cyclists and people can be comfortable. But like, for example, crossing State Street, we need to have a right turn pocket. And so the cyclists who are in this buffered bike lane will have to come out and then navigate within the cars. And then as soon as they get through it, they can kind of continue with the bike lane. So, those things are taken into account.
Quick question
Sure.
on this, especially because I see and I hear, I live on the 4800 South and on the east side, and I hear from a lot of my constituents that they want more accessibility in walkways. Why wouldn't we do like a multi-use path or a protected buffered?
You certainly can take a look at that and upgrade, it's not a bad idea, especially as you get further and further east. Specifically, as you get closer to Van Winkle, we actually show that. So our plan was to transition to like a dedicated trail, and it's the best way to get bikes across Van Winkle and to connect into 9th East. And the way that this intersection is designed. But the truth is that, yeah, you guys get the opportunity to take a look at what you'd like to do. Bike lanes or buffered bike lanes offer a little bit of comfort of separating the bikes from the cars, right, and having that buffer. But it also worked with the transportation plan and what we were looking at there, which Chris alluded to earlier, in terms of having the pavement footprint and not impacting people's front yards or just kind of like staying within the thing. Doing trails and moving curb ends up being a lot trickier and oftentimes
Right.
way, way, way more costly, like a lot more, not just a
Right.
little bit more, but
Yeah.
and because you have to move drainage when you move curb. And so,
okay.
anyway, like ultimately, this is kind of where we landed as a committee. And again, Danny was really part of this. There was a lot of folks. Trey and Chris were really critical.
Is there, let's say, the first step, we do the buffered bike lane. And eventually, over time, there could be that conversation, especially in parts, like you said, like near Van Winkle would probably be a great place. I think I'm really attracted to what is happening on 3rd West by Costco and how well and utilized that is working now and how many people are using it.
So, by the way, that's our project as well. We did
Okay.
that design. That one is incredibly tricky. We also spent
Right.
$21 million on that
Oh,
project. And so just, there's an order of magnitude
Right.
cost difference. It really is different.
And if I might add to that, what Thomas has drawn here is kind of like a baseline. It's a design guide. It's to help push that conversation. And when we do get to it, certainly we can make our modifications as we go into design on behalf of the city. So this is kind of showing what could be there more practically.
Perfect. Well, and I just wanted to put that input in because I do get a lot of questions about how to make it more walkable along 4800 South and safer, really. And I think it would add a safety feature to that road specifically that I get a lot of complaints from residents about. So thank you.
Sure. And I guess the last thing I would say is make a plug for the website. midvalleyatp.com has both the final report, it's got the designs, you can navigate an interactive map with every single project, you can read the entire appendix. Everything that we ever generated is there. It's available to the public, always has been.
I just want to thank Rosalba for bringing up the buffered as the preferred. I know they are more expensive, but if you're biking in this city, the level of safety you feel in a buffered bike lane is just huge compared to open. And it was nice to see on the map how rarely it was that it was the red one, the shared roadway option was there, because as a bike rider, if I bike from my house on 11th West, I take the Parkway for part of it, which is a dream. I feel like I'm in a movie when I'm biking here on the Parkway. I'm like, this is ideal, best commute ever. But then I turn up Vine and I feel like I'm gonna die. And it's a shared roadway. But what that says to me is I'm less likely to get sworn at by a motorist, but I don't actually feel safer. It's more just like this paint is there to remind them I'm allowed to exist, but I feel no measure of safety when that's painted on the road. So anytime we can have a separate lane, I'll take all their front yards. You can take that to the record. But it's just so much safer. So I appreciated seeing that on the map. So thank you for bringing that up, Rosalba. Any questions other than my rant? Thank you guys so much for sharing. That was great information. See you soon. All right.
Quick question.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
What was the website? It was midvalleyatp.com.
atp.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just wasn't in our paperwork.
Sure. It's on the cover of the presentation. You can type it
It's
in.
cut off.
Yeah.
It was cut off. That's why I was asking.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we'll do community and economic development. We've got Jared doing a department report. Hi, Jared.
Well, I am glad to be with you all today, and appreciate the chance to talk about the department a little bit, community and economic development, and feel free to stop me at any point if you want to ask any questions. Okay, so I'm just kind of going to go through a few slides, and we'll talk a little bit about the department itself and what we do. From the website, we have a statement on the website. When you look at our department, it says the Community and Economic Development Department is charged with overseeing the orderly growth and development of Murray City to enhance the welfare of the citizens in the community by providing planning and economic development efforts which contribute to the enhancement of property and the bettering of community. So what does that mean that we do exactly in community and economic development? Sometimes we think that nobody really knows, and that's why we get a lot of random calls, including people looking for their driver's license renewals and things like that. If it's got to do with community at all, we'll get that call, and we're happy to take them. And like 90% of the time, they're right. It's probably us. We do a lot of different things. Building services, all kinds of building services. We'll talk about this a little bit more in just a second. Permits and plan review and inspections. We handle the business licensing for the city. We do planning and zoning, which is probably the part of what we do that you're most familiar with, because we come here to the city council for things that have legislative outcomes. And we do zoning compliance, which is another aspect of the planning work that we do. We do have staff supporting redevelopment agency work and then economic development as well. So let's just take those in a little bit of order. There are three divisions in the department: the building division, the planning and licensing division, and then the administration division, which is just me and an admin. We handle the RDA work mostly through that, but I want to talk mostly about the building and planning and licensing. Let's start with building. So there are 4 people currently working in the building division. We have room for more, but it's difficult to hire people right now as inspectors. We do have 1 inspector, Thomas Butts, that's still working with us. Don Stephenson is our chief building official. Karen Richards for permit supervision, and Miranda Carter is our office administrator. We're in the process of hiring a second office administrator to help with some of that workload.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Your building inspector, do you have that, if you're looking for more building inspectors, do you have that job on your website?
Yeah,
or?
it's
Okay.
posted.
It is posted?
Open until filled. We're
Okay.
out. And we've gone through a couple of different applicants and haven't found anyone yet, but we're still working and hopeful. Right now, so a lot of if you look at the permits, this is July, so there were 598 inspections performed in July. Thomas, I'm going to spoiler alert you, Thomas did not perform all of those inspections alone because we don't work him 24 hours a day. We have to contract out a lot of the inspection services right now, as do a lot of cities currently. So we have contractors that come in and help with those inspections as well. Don's actually out there doing some inspections once in a
Quick
while.
question on the inspector
Sure.
follow-up. I don't think I've ever asked this question, but
Sure.
do we have any incentives on training somebody or giving them a certification, or we'll pay for that and as an exchange?
We help with that, yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
and you move up as soon as you have certification. So the incentives are there to come in, even if you only have 1 certification for 1 kind of inspection. We would hire you right now and get you those inspection certifications and bring you along. It's a region-wide problem. It's actually probably a national problem where there's not a lot of building inspectors out there. They foresaw it about 10 years ago. I remember hearing about it when I was working in Roy from the building inspector who came back from a building, the building officials meetings they have every month, and said, they're saying in 10 years, we're gonna have a real problem with building inspectors. There's just not enough. And I thought, oh, that's really weird. It's been literally 10 years. And they were right. So
I have another question for you. Is there a time frame for these building inspections? Or
do you mean as far as getting them performed?
yes?
Yes, and it's dictated by state code. We have a certain number of days to perform inspections for residential and a certain number to perform inspections for commercial. And every project will have multiple inspections.
Okay.
Plan reviews
Yes.
are the most severely dictated and you'll notice we don't have a person labeled as a plan reviewer. We have an open position for plan review as well right now that we haven't been able to fill. Don does a lot of those plan reviews, and we contract out what he can't handle for private to the private sector as well. But we have turnaround times that are dictated by state code for those as well.
And you're able to make those?
With the
Deadlines?
contractors, yeah, as long as we have contractors coming in, we wouldn't without them. But
Okay.
Jared?
yeah,
I have asked this before, and I'll ask it again because I'm not sure. So what we pay our staff in the building area,
Yeah.
is it in line with what other cities are paying
It
as
is.
well?
Yeah, we recently went through that with HR and made sure that we were not just competitive, but that we should be able to get somebody brought in. So, and it still hasn't. It's a shortage of people, and the private sector pays really well right now for this kind of service. So, we're confident that we'll get somebody at some point, but right now we're still looking. But we are competitive. Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. I thought so, but
Yeah. Now we are. It's just so far hasn't panned out, but we'll keep trying.
All right. Keep it up.
Yeah. So just looking at that, that's just a quick snapshot for July to give you an idea of how we are a busy city. There's a lot going on all the time in Murray. 28 permits were issued for a value of 2.6 million, basically. The permit fees for those were about 39,598 inspections and 21 certificates of occupancy after a building's been inspected. I don't know if this is something you're familiar with, but when a building is permitted and then it's built and then gets inspected, when it's finally inspected, there are final inspections that happen and it's granted a certificate of occupancy. So that's its last step. And we did complete 21 of those. Let's see, just any other questions about the building division? So we're trying to staff some positions there, and we'll keep trying until we get them, and I'll keep you updated as you want to know.
Have you guys thought about bringing some of the Murray High kids over there as internship just to get a feel? Because on Bullion, there's that house being built, and the Murray High kids are building
working on
that one. And so there may be a field that they would be interested in.
Yep. We've talked about it, and we'll keep pursuing that avenue to see if it works out. Some of the challenges that building inspectors a lot of times come from the industry, but then there's a whole lot of code you have to learn to pass these tests, and you can make a lot of money just working in the industry, or you've been able to in the last 5-10 years to make a lot of money working on the contract side. So it's been tough to get folks, but we'll keep pursuing that avenue. Absolutely, thank you. Business licensing. Go ahead.
I know Pam's asked that question before, and I think right now they just have absolutely zero time to have an intern there. Having an intern there takes so much time, and we get way behind on inspections. But I know that Jared's brought that up, so yeah. So
we get a little leveled out, we definitely want to do it and bring people along. Another aspect, like we mentioned, the building division is one division. The second division we want to talk about is planning and business licensing. We'll start with the business licensing part of that, if that's okay. Priscilla Kowalski is our business license specialist. She's been with us about 6 years now, I think. She started as the office administrator and moved into business license specialist. And we've hired a new office administrator, Delia Garnica. She's the office admin for that division, but she works a lot with Priscilla. So I put her with Priscilla on this because she backs up the business licensing function when Priscilla's not around, and helps her with that every day. And you can see why. We have 3,700 active business licenses. That's today's number. That changes every day. So Priscilla pulled me today's number, 3,704. At any given moment in any month, there's about 300 to 400 of those in process of some kind. Either they're up for renewal, or we're figuring out if they need to be closed, or there are new ones in addition coming in every day. We get 60 to 70 new applications for business licenses every month. The craziest time, we do them all different months. Some cities do them annually and say everybody renews their licenses at the end of the year or at the beginning of January. We couldn't physically do that with this many licenses. We have way too many. So we spread them out through the months. So, Pam, you look like you had a question.
No.
Okay.
I do.
So I put in a picture of the Fashion Place Mall because it's always fun at Christmas time, or actually as you get toward Black Friday. About a month before Black Friday, it gets really crazy for business licensing with everyone trying to open kiosks in the mall, et cetera, and finally getting around to renewing licenses. So it's a fun time. Priscilla loves it. So that's, and everyone in the department kind of connects to business licensing as well. The building department, the building division, there are reviews of renewals. When licenses come in for renewal, oftentimes they need to be reviewed by the building division. They need to get reviewed by planning and zoning, and that brings us to code enforcement. One of the functions of Mark Boren, assistant planner code enforcement, is to review business license renewals as they come in as well. That every one of them gets a zoning check as it comes through. New licenses get more in-depth reviews, and renewals also get reviewed as well. So far, He's needed to do 73 license renewal inspections this year, 15 inspections for occupancy. We also, from planning and zoning, we send Mark on those certificate of occupancy inspections if they're needed from zoning. He checks for, it's not listed here, but he also does all of our inspections for planning and zoning. When we issue from planning and zoning, we'll talk about in a moment, conditional use permits. Mark goes out and makes sure that the conditions that were imposed by the commission are implemented before they move on for a license. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of his
question.
some of his stuff. Sure.
Is there anybody that we've ever shut down, or is it in our code or anything?
For a license?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Or do we have anything even in our code that if they violate something where?
Yeah, if they're violating the terms of their license, or most often we cite people for operating without a license, or we send them notices that they're operating without a license and they need to come into compliance with that. But there have been rare occasions when, for example, someone has a license to operate and that license was predicated on a conditional use permit, and they're violating the terms of their conditional use permit. I'm not going to say we've revoked any licenses because I'm not sure, but we've had to threaten to revoke and take them back to the planning commission and get into compliance. Usually that threat alone of them not being able to operate anymore is enough to get them into compliance.
Okay.
Usually it's letters and phone calls and knocks on the door from Mark. And that's what doesn't really show up in here. 207 code complaints through June. And these numbers, I realized it's not year to date. This is through June. Sorry, that doesn't include July's numbers. But that doesn't really kind of capture what someone like Mark does. He spends an inordinate amount of time on the phone and writing letters and working with people in meetings and such to try to get compliance with things. It's always the goal that we have, not to shut people down, but rather to get in compliance. So I hope that answers your question, Rosalba. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
All right. So Mark functions as a part of the planning division, but kind of in a specialty role. And so now let's talk about the planning division. So we have 3 planners, as you're aware, Zach and Susan and Seth. I think you guys have met all of them at this point. I don't know if Seth has come to one of the city council meetings yet. We'll get him up here for you to meet him. Seth is new with us this year. He just started and passed his probation just recently. Right now in planning, we have 163 applications. That's more than we had last year altogether. The pandemic is over and people are working on things. And those applications in planning and zoning, this is a question we ask ourselves all the time. How do you describe to somebody what a city planner does? A little bit of everything, right? Those applications include zone changes and text amendments, conditional use permits, site plan reviews, design reviews, appeals of the decisions that get made by the planning commission and by I'm trying to think of the title, but it doesn't matter. My decisions get appealed sometimes about things, determinations that we make. Variances, where people ask for variances to different zoning regulations. Determination letters, we send a lot of real estate companies and title companies will ask us for verifications of the zoning of a property. And then subdivisions, boundary line adjustments. And again, just a lot of work with people in meetings and on the phone, et cetera. So those 163 applications generate a lot of hours of work, some of which happens in front of the City Council and the RDA and the Planning Commission. The Planning Division is staff for the Commission, for hearing officers, for the MCCD Review Committee. We had a meeting a week ago on Thursday. City Council and the RDA when we're needed, when those applications need to come before those bodies. And then we also, dabble's not the right word. That's not a very professional word. We wind up working and planning with a lot of other groups as well. Susan has been working with the Salt Lake County Brownfields Coalition. She's the chairperson this year, actually, with that group. There's a member of the engineering division on that group as well. The Regional Growth Commission's Technical Advisory Committee we participate in, Salt Lake County's Active Transportation Committee, the Seven Canyons Trust, which is trying to daylight all the creeks. We've just started working with them a bit to provide some support and stay in touch with them and the other communities around, with NeighborWorks that you're all familiar with, and with the Legislative Policy Committee. Zach was very active on the LPC this year, and we need to be involved in those things to make sure we're on top of everything that's happening. And that's just kind of a sampling. There's others that I couldn't tell you because it comes up every 4 or 5 months and we were participating again, but those are the ones that sprung to mind as I was putting these together. Just a little bit of something to keep in mind that we're working on right now, things that are kind of on the nearer horizon. We're going to be updating that moderate income housing element. I think you're all aware. You'll be seeing it in September again, and that'll have a bunch of things that come along with it that we need to act on as well in the near future. One of those things will be the Murray North Station Area Plan. Zach just filed our application a couple of weeks ago for a grant with the WFRC to do that plan. And that'll be an exciting thing for us to do. We need to start on that one sooner than later. We have 735 apartment homes that are under construction right now in the city. They're permitted and under construction right now. And there's others that are entitled or that are permitted that haven't begun construction yet. We have a lot of single family homes and missing middle housing that's under construction, not as much as the apartments because the unit counts are higher, obviously, but we have some under construction. We have a lot that's permitted or ready to be permitted or entitlement in some way. They're under review in different ways. But we're seeing a lot more, a lot of housing activity, and that accounts for some of those applications that you see. Again, we're going to be asking the council to look at accessory dwelling units and consider what we might change with accessory dwelling units as a part of that moderate income housing element update as well. So those are kind of the things that you would expect to see from Planning Division in the next 6-8 months. And there'll be more outgrowth from that as well. So that's what I wanted to tell you about the division and the department. Is there any questions that you have for us? Okay.
I just want to say thank you. I think this has been very comprehensive in my tenure being here. We understand what you're doing, but I think this just kind of gave me a really good overview of the other areas that you guys do service in.
They're all kind of connected loosely, and they all work great. So I have a really great group of people down there working together, and they do a great job. So thanks,
Roosevelt. I agree. I'm not kidding you. When I came in here, I'm going, you do all that? And then Mark's job reminds me of a collection job, because he's constantly going like crazy, knocking on doors and following up on calls. And oh my goodness, these guys are
so many.
It'll be interesting because you'll see a little bit when they move over.
Yeah.
How busy.
That'll be so nice.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I know we like to watch over Jared, so we're excited to have him there.
We'll bug you all the time when you're going to.
No one wants to roll over.
And I think you guys are on our same floor, so we'll bug you a lot.
Yeah, then we'll really know what you do.
When you hear me say things like Mark comes in and out of the office all the time, you'll know what I mean, because you'll see him coming across that parking lot upstairs 10 minutes and he's out again, and back again, and out again. So
also on top of that, RDA.
Correct, and I didn't get into all of that too much, but that other division is the administration division, and that's RDA, and the planning folks help me out with that a lot. I lean on them. You would be surprised how much we lean on Susan for brownfields and Zach for ideas for economic development, et cetera. They're all involved in that as well, even though they're not technically part of that little division. We lean on the planners for that as well.
Yeah.
How many more people do you need? I mean,
I need that admin for
what's
sure.
your wish list in terms of the people that to help support you in all areas, not just planning?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And right now, my honest answer is I need that admin, and that's what I believe I need. And we need the aptitude of the people in the planning division is enough that they're doing well. Handling, it looks like a lot that's coming in, but they're handling it very, very well. And
so just more support staff, if anything.
The support staff I need for that admin side, and that admin is going to help me with RDA projects, et cetera, but they're also going to handle a lot of stuff that the division needs that's being currently farmed out to people like Susan that she shouldn't be doing anymore, and she should be able to focus more on other things. And Zach doing monthly reporting and yearly reporting. That admin will take those.
Jared, tell us how many employees have you been approved to hire? 2 more? 3 more?
3 more.
3 more.
So we're still missing well, I'm sorry, 4 more. We've almost hired that building admin.
Wow, that's awesome.
The CED admin, the one I call CED admin, that'll work directly with me and do a lot of stuff for the whole department. The building inspector that I think we actually have 2 building inspector positions open, and hallelujah, one day maybe we will get both of them filled. But I'm just hoping for 1 at this point. And then that plans examiner position, it would be great to have the plans examiner in-house again. So that's 5 altogether.
And
we had a building inspector that we thought was going to come on board, and
Didn't quite pan out.
I couldn't even tell you. It was like 5 times more than what we could pay them. I don't know what it was, but it was a lot more.
There's a lot of money being thrown at people that have qualifications for building inspection out there from the private sector. They're having trouble keeping up with all the demand from the cities that can't hire inspectors. So it's kind of a vicious cycle that's bad for everybody unless you're that building inspector with all those certifications, in which case it's great. So.
And when is your admin person coming on?
I should have an admin by the time we get to mid-September.
Awesome.
Good.
If I don't,
One last question I have for you.
Yeah.
Let's add another whole position, right? What about with recruiting for businesses to come to Murray? What would that like? I know we've talked about it, Mayor, but and bringing business here and helping with your department and kind of facilitating that a little bit. Is there anything on the horizon for that?
Yeah,
that could be support.
That's a great question. The Economic Development Corporation of Utah that we're part of, and the Utah Business Alliance that we're part of as well, have a lot of resources for that we need to be participating in more. And really what I need for that is that admin position, because they have all the expertise in those things. They can help us bring them here. I just need to be able to interact with them more than I do. And that's,
you need to be free more is basically.
Yeah. And I need to be more efficient. I need to be in it more than I am. And I need to just handle that, but I need that admin for that kind of stuff. But the resources are there. We just need to tap.
Is the application still open for anybody watching online?
Yeah,
you can apply now.
It'll be out there soon. We're filling that building admin and then we'll post it. So.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
That's good. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Rosalba, so.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my questions was when you and the mayor and Diane and Jennifer went to Nevada, did you come across any businesses that would like to come to Murray? And have you reached out, or has anybody reached out to them to bring their vision here to Murray? Yes.
So, yes. It's going to take the one in particular I'm thinking of. It takes more we have to find a partner locally, and the EDCU. We have to find a restaurant partner locally, and the EDCU and the Business Alliance can help us do that, and we're working on that. I had to stop for a minute because I don't think of Las Vegas as Nevada, but it took me a minute to catch up.
It's its own. I did not want the community to know that you guys went to Las Vegas, that's why I just said Nevada.
It's not like we were in Winnemucca. It was Las Vegas. So yeah.
No, Elko.
Elko. There you go. But yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks
Jared.
so much.
All right. Next up is discussion on the recommendations from the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. Last committee of the whole, I did sort of a longer presentation, but we didn't have the resolution language nailed down. So I did want to talk about that today. So what I'll do is just read the resolution to start and just talk a little bit about like what it does and what it does not do. So the resolution, and it's in everyone's packet, is a resolution approving the Diversity and Inclusion Ad Hoc Advisory Task Force recommendations. And the language is, whereas on January 19th, 2021, the City Council established the Diversity and Inclusion Ad Hoc Advisory Task Force to research and examine the relationship between the community at large and marginalized and underrepresented communities within the context of city policies, practices, and programming, in order to provide feedback that will help foster mutual understanding and respect among all members of the city. And whereas diverse backgrounds, perspectives, and abilities contribute to the health, welfare, and economy of the city. And whereas over the course of the last year, the task force met regularly to advise the City Council on efforts to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into policies, practices, and programming provided by the city. And whereas the City Council wants to recognize the work and thank the members of the task force for its recommendations. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Murray City Municipal Council as follows. 1, it does hereby recognize and thank the members of the Diversity and Inclusion Ad Hoc Advisory Task Force for its work and recommendations over the past year. 2, the task force recommendations attached hereto are accepted by the City Council. 3, the City Council Executive Director shall submit the recommendations to the Mayor for his consideration and implementation of the principles embodied in the recommendations. And 4, pursuant to 4.3 of the Diversity Inclusion Ad Hoc Advisory Task Force Governance Charter, the task force is hereby terminated and disbanded. And 5, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage. So what this resolution does is it is a resolution thanking the task force members and also a resolution of support for designating an equity director specifically to head any equity work within the city. What it does not do is mandate a full-time position with any immediate scope of the role. It gives the mayor's office a lot of flexibility within that. We talked a lot about it at the last meeting. Are there questions with the actual language or about this particular piece? No? Yeah, go ahead, Rosalba.
I know we talked a little bit about this at the last meeting, but transforming the ad hoc into an actual board.
So the ad hoc task force could not be transformed due to its charter. It has to be disbanded with the presentation of these recommendations. Within the larger packet of recommendations, there is a recommendation of having an ongoing advisory committee. It was decided to only have the equity director as part of this resolution, as that is the first primary step. And from there, it really goes to how that role grows or expands or is ready to implement something like that. But it is something that the mayor and I have talked about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Go ahead, Diane.
I just want to say I think you did a really good job. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your taking this on.
Thank you. And I'll do a little bit longer presentation at City Council with the whole thing, but that was just for the resolution language. Well, if there aren't any other questions, then we are finished with our committee of the whole agenda. So if there's no objections, we are adjourned until 6:30.